Welcome to the Unraveled Podcast. My name's Alina.
And my name is Nina. And today I wanted to talk about housing.
Okay.
So there's this term that people use that I think some people take the wrong way, and that is affordable housing.
Okay.
So I think when a lot of people talk about affordable housing, they might be thinking of government housing or homes that are built super cheaply, some things that are built to tackle homelessness and stuff like that. But I think that that's a very small view on that word.
Okay.
And I think that we're seeing a lot of the millennial and Gen Z and even younger generations looking for alternative options in the housing that we have currently available that has been built and is being built. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So have you ever heard of the term called the missing middle?
I have not. That's new to me, at least.
So the missing middle is basically referring to some housing that is in between like a large single family home and maybe like a small condo or townhome.
Okay.
So smaller square footage would be ideal. So if we look at maybe 5 Points or Normal Town, we actually see the original footprint of some of those homes being a bit smaller. You know?
A lot in Normal Town, for sure.
Yes. So, we're looking at 1,000
I actually
square
don't
feet.
think of anything in Normal Town above 1,500 square feet.
And some of those are with additions now. Mm-hmm. So like in 5 Points, for example, we have much bigger houses. That's because some of them have been torn down and rebuilt or additions have been put on. But if you look like way, way back before all that was done, houses were built a bit smaller. So obviously, as time has gone on, people want to make more money when it comes to building houses. And if you build a bigger house, you'd sell it for more.
Sure.
And between that and zoning, it's been harder. So a lot of people, maybe they don't want to buy a big house, not because they can't afford it, but maybe they want to travel for half the year, but they don't want to pay rent. So they're looking for something that's a bit smaller, and no one's building it here. Well, I don't say no one. There's a couple communities in Atlanta that have done it, but
like the micro tiny house development, something. Yeah.
But technically, it's not considered a tiny house.
Right. But I'm just talking about general, like a different type of development that's not happening enough in other places.
Like, a small 2-bedroom house, but it's a standalone house. There might be an HOA, but it's not something that is 3,000 square feet, that the utility bills are going to be high, taxes are going to be high. And in a lot of other states, it's extremely popular. So California, Washington, really a lot of the West Coast have implemented this, and I guess it's slowly creeping over.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts on the idea of, let's say there's a piece of land, 5 acres, instead of building one house on there, building 10 or 12 houses that
they would just be smaller,
cheaper, so more people can purchase them. And as far as the infrastructure goes, it's great for the community because you're going to have 10 taxpayers versus 1. So it could be beneficial also.
Agreed. I think it's certainly a great idea. I think it's not as customary, which is maybe why it's not as customary and it's not as profitable.
Yes.
I think that's the reality of it, which is why you're talking about affordable housing. I think it's a great idea. I think they would sell very well because of those two things. But in terms of trying to find people that would actually do them, that's the difficult part. But I think the idea is great. I think it would do very well. I think they would sell very well. Also, given that that you can see it's done very well in other cities, like you mentioned, even like the micro house community in Atlanta. I was like, those are some tiny houses. Are people really going to buy that? Yes, it gives people an opportunity for home ownership.
Over 200 people waiting list.
I know. They had them sold out before they were even started construction. And the reality is in my mind, I'm thinking that's so tiny. Who's going to buy that? But the reality is it gives someone an opportunity to step into home ownership, even if it's for a temporary point of time, because they can still resell it and make money off of it. They've got to experience home ownership and hopefully been able to take those proceeds and buy something better and bigger that works for their newer situation. Versus someone never having the opportunity to own a home because either they don't need that much house for the price point. I don't know. I think it opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah. And, if we think about the younger generation coming up, some of them don't have the money to buy a huge McMansion. For some of them, they have the money, but for, global warming purposes, they don't want to buy that huge house. They want to buy something that's smaller, more efficient, better for the environment.
Right.
And then you have people that they're traveling all the time. So they want to have a house, but they don't want to buy that 3,000 square foot house. And then you have people that are retiring, downsizing, that it would benefit them greatly to live in a community where they're surrounded by other people, a community garden, a fire pit, places where you can go outside and say hello to your neighbor, your dogs can play together. Kind of the idea of having like a village again. And I just wish more people would talk about it. I mean, technically, okay, zoning is a big issue.
Sure.
Because in the greater Athens area, we don't have a cottage court ordinance, which is what you would need to have. I think
I've never even heard of that before. In order to do tiny houses, is that what you're saying?
So you need a variance or a cottage court ordinance. I think it was earlier this year that they came and talked, Athens Clarke County Zoning and Planning, they came and talked and said tentatively 2026, they're going to put in that ordinance, which is great news. It means they realize that there's a need
for it.
I mean, there's a need, but there's also a demand. So when there's a demand, there's money to be made. And I think no one's really done it locally, and so they don't really understand. If you were to build a community and you're going to have hundreds of people waiting to purchase, you're going to get a return.
Absolutely.
So is it technically affordable housing? Yes, because it's more affordable than a new construction elsewhere.
Sure.
But is it affordable in regards, like, is it free housing? Is it government? No, it's not. So what's that kind of middle ground where we're seeing these buyers, they want to come in and buy, but they don't want to be in a condo or a townhome. They don't want to live next to students. They don't want to share walls, but they want to own a home. So what's the solution?
And that could be a possible good one. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
So I know you also wanted to talk about different generations and housing affordability as well, and kind of what that looks like, what that has looked like, and what that could and is looking like right now.
Yeah. So this is a hill I'm going to die on because people argue with me about this all the time. And obviously, I wasn't alive, 60 years ago. My parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, obviously the economy was different at that time. House prices were different. Interest rates were different. But what we do know to be fact is housing prices have gone up over the years.
Correct.
But the average income has not gone up to the same or even anywhere near where
Agreed.
It needs to be in order to match. So you have people...
And you've got the cost of living going up in general as well.
Cost of living goes up, housing goes up, but then the average salary, minimum wage does not go up. So then you have people that are working extremely hard that will never be able to purchase a home just because the gap is too wide. And I hear older people saying, oh, well, you just need to work harder. You need to not buy coffee. That's not the solution. You have to realize you purchased your home for $12,000. When you were making, $9,000 a year. So if you take that average, it's nowhere near the same. And obviously this is what problem comes first, the chicken or the egg type of scenario. But I just wish people would be more honest and more understanding that the younger generation is working very hard, that we're facing challenges that people that came before us didn't face. And, vice versa, things like that. But when it comes to housing...
It's a different generation. We're in a different world.
Yeah. Social Security is not going to exist for you and I.
Yeah.
And there's just certain things that are going to be ending. But when it comes to housing, people need a place to live. So if we're not going to adjust the income, the minimum wage, then we have to provide some housing solutions.
Agreed.
For people. But that's just my rant. There's a nonprofit that I have been talking to over the last few years, and their name is Microlife Institute, and they're out of Atlanta, and they've been working on this for years to try to educate people about the different type of housing solutions that they could add to their community. The big issue is zoning. So,
sure.
It's a team effort, but I think you could build beautiful communities. Even if you go online and you just search a cottage court, you have these beautiful houses, and these are not like 600 square foot houses. These are
under
1,100. Well, not
Oh, wow. They're even more
to
than that.
1,500. So if you think like a condo in Athens, you get condos for like 1,000 or 1,100 square feet. But if somebody wants a little house instead versus a condo, so it doesn't have to be a tiny house. People think it's tiny houses. I think the demand for tiny houses is not that high.
Sure.
Because it takes a special type of person. Can you imagine having multiple people in a tiny house?
I know.
You better love each other.
I know.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. Let us know in the comments because I'm curious to hear what other people have to think about this. And would anyone be interested in that type of housing? I know I would, for example.
Sure.
Like if I was younger.
But then you know what? If you do something like that, you've got to limit who can buy it.
Well, yes.
Because then I'm assuming there probably is some limitations in regards to that.
So there's an HOA. So this is it's based on zoning. So the county would determine. And what we are often seeing is for the county to approve it, the HOA would not allow short-term rentals.
Or regular rentals or anything.
Because that's defeating the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Because of course you're going to get investors come up and buy everything. But these are supposed to be owner-occupied. So, there's some condo and townhome communities in Athens that is owner-occupied only. So you could technically rent out one bedroom, but you, the owner, have to be living in the property.
So I wonder how that would, so you said owner occupied. Because I was going to say, I wonder how that would work because, when you're in a college city like Athens, you have people that are buying houses up or buying condos for their kids to live in. But I guess if it's technically owner occupied, then they couldn't really buy it for their daughter to live in.
And that's not what the target is anyway. The target is for
the working class.
Because Athens was listed as one of the top retirement cities.
But
there's really not a whole lot of housing available for those people that want to retire. And also, what about the professionals that go to UGA or, that come to Athens, go to school, and then they want to stay? Their options are limited. They could go buy a house in Oconee County for $1 million, or they could buy a condo in Athens, for $300,000. Like, where are the kind of normal starter homes? We're not seeing those being built. And so that's the hill I'm going to die on. I've talked to a lot of different builders about it, and they're like, oh, it's not profitable.
That's what yeah, it would not surprise me.
But if the zoning was changed, it could be profitable. So that's the big ticket item, If zoning worked a little bit better, then it could very easily be profitable. Because the communities out of Atlanta, they sold out very quickly. And some of those were tiny house.
I know. Micro, tinier than a tiny house. Yeah.
So not even something that you could live in comfortably as an individual, So.
I agree.
Well, that's it.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for this episode. We film every Wednesday. Well, we don't film every Wednesday, but we air a new episode out every Wednesday at 5 a.m. You can find us on any platform where you watch podcasts. And then also we have Instagram and TikTok where we post snippets of our episodes throughout the week. We look forward to seeing you guys in our next episode.
Thanks for watching.